we also really want to value enjoying each other. And it's not just a business relationship. We're married and we want to enjoy our date. So that was kind of a challenge that presented itself.
Welcome to the Blended Family Coaching Show, where you'll discover how to move your step family from just surviving to truly thriving.
Grab your headphones and listen in as we share practical, real-life strategies for building healthy bonds,
Understanding the kids' perspective,
romance and partnership,
parenting with great teamwork,
and yes, even co-parenting with a difficult ex.
We're Mike and Kim Anderson, and we believe with the right tools, every step couple can overcome the common challenges of step family life.
Join us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations to discover how you can lead your family with confidence and create the future you really want.
Well, hey, welcome to the Blended Family Coaching Show. We're very excited for you to be joining us today, and we're super excited to have some friends from Charlotte, North Carolina joining us. In fact, we had the privilege of connecting with Todd and Shannon for several months through one of our coaching programs, and they've introduced us to a new thought process that we thought would be so valuable for you to hang out and listen to
sometimes today. We learn from you guys, and this was one of those opportunities where Todd and Shannon shared something that they've been doing through their blending process, and we're like, yes, we love it.
Yeah, for sure. So Todd and Shannon, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, yeah, we're glad to be here.
Hello.
So good to connect with you. Well, we want to dive into, practical stuff and all kinds of things, but I got to slow myself down once in a while. And I got to just say, hey, wait a second. How about if we just hear a little bit of your story?
Yeah.
Would the two of you be willing to share a little bit of your story and how you came to blend, and maybe how long you've been married, and how many kids you have, all that stuff that blended families kind of really want to know.
Oh, sure. Todd and I met in the fall of 2012. And when we met, I was a widow and a single mom of my 4.5-year-old son.
Okay.
And Todd was a widower with 3 children, ages 3, 6, and 9. Is that right?
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Wow.
And we were married in towards the end of 2013.
Okay. So safe to say that you've got a busy household with lots of kids.
Yes.
Full time. And the truth is, each of you and your kids have navigated some loss as well. And so you've had to work through some stuff.
Right.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, we have a really unique family, and I think we were just kind of met each other as someone, who was a single parent and lost a spouse in our 30s. Yeah. So it was a unique situation, and we bonded over that, and then started dating, and it went on from there. But as you said, now we have 4 kids together full time. Yeah. And, working through the blending process.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us what it was like after you got married and moved everyone under one roof. I mean, was it what you expected?
Like the Brady Bunch, right? It was wonderful.
I think we were pretty much kind of winging it, to be honest. I mean, I don't think there was any way to even have the foresight to know what to expect.
Yeah.
I think because even our whole dating process, that was a lot to juggle because we each had our own household, and as single parents to get coverage for our children, to be able to date, that was difficult to sustain. So when we got married, in a sense, there was also a relief on that end because we didn't have to date anymore.
A little easier. Yeah.
Sure. Yes. Every day was a date after that.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you just think about throwing in 3 siblings that are siblings with each other, and then a new sibling, new dad for my son, new stepmom for Todd's kids, and just kind of a matter of jumping in, trial by fire.
And Shannon, you went from being a single mom of one child to being the matriarch of a home where there was 4 kids, all like overnight.
Yeah. What was that like for you?
I mean, it was just like being a mom on steroids. I mean, the laundry was tons of laundry, and learning how to cook for more people, because I chose, in our family dynamic, I enjoy cooking and making sure that we have at least 4 healthy meals a week is important to me. And so just even learning how to grocery shop and supply a refrigerator for that many people was a total change in my brain. And then I think also with Todd having older children, because I was tracking as a mom, like I would say my mom age by the time we got married was 6 years old, right?
Okay.
But then by the time we were married, there was a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old. Right. And so that was like, it would have been a 9-year-old and 11-year-old. But anyway, whatever the age, it was older than what I was used to tracking with.
So all of a sudden you got this adolescent in the home who's headed toward teen years as well, like instantly.
Yeah, that's very different than younger kids.
Yeah.
And I would imagine, you're on this learning curve, you're trying to figure things out. What does your calendar look like after you get under one roof? Tell us a little bit about the chaos and the busyness of family life.
I remember I used to be anti-digital calendar, and Todd was really into his digital calendar. And I was like, no, because I've been a school teacher collectively for 20 years. I love my planner. I like writing things out. But then I realized that there were a lot of moving parts in this family. And unless I want to have a one-on-one conversation with each person and talk about what they think they might do each day, then that would be a lot of work all in itself. And so I ended up buying into the digital calendar thing, because that was the best way to help just even me have a sense of who's going to be home for dinner and what's going on, who needs a ride someplace.
Yeah, that has been one of the most helpful things that we've done is from the get-go, we set up a color-coded calendar online that was shared between Shannon and me mostly. And then as the kids got, age appropriate with the device, we would share the calendar with them as well. And we had some of the kids use it less than others. We have one who really likes to look ahead and think about, what's coming up this week and that sort of thing. So she really benefited, pretty early on on her iPad. She could see what we had, coming up next weekend. Right.
Yeah.
And then Shannon and I could have, recurring events and things on there. And so, but having a color for each member of the family helped. So we could sort of take a look and see and distribute carpool duties and that sort of thing.
So it sounds like from the very beginning, you got to get creative around, hey, how are we going to handle just the business of family life and the busyness of family life? And, you talked about dating a little while ago, and dating is something, after the marriage, after everybody's under one roof, that we really talk with a lot of couples about.
Yeah, keep up your dating life, your romantic life.
Absolutely. And that's important. We all know that's important right along the way. We've got to continue to grow our couple relationship. But one of the things we emphasize when we talk about dating is like, hey, don't talk about family business. Let's not talk about the budget or the schedule or the kids or parenting or any of that. Let's just get focused on us as a couple and really talk about our hopes and our dreams and all of those kinds of things. And so as we were walking through this coaching process with you guys, you challenged us actually on that thought process. And you had a thought or an idea that flipped our emphasis kind of on its head. And you had a very unique date night. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. So I think, so much of this Mike and Kim, we feel like we were fumbling through at the beginning, and years later we found you guys and have been so thankful for the coaching and the support that you've provided. But Shannon and I both wish that we had found you guys a lot earlier, because some of this stuff we sort of fumbled into and had to figure out by trial and error. Sure. But early on, it was really important to both of us for us to have a weekly date night every week that we could. And so we kind of felt like we were behind in terms of really courting each other and developing that romantic relationship, because we had gotten married with kids and our dating process was encumbered by kids and that sort of thing. So we were thankfully both committed to that and had a buy-in there. But what we started noticing was we really had a lot of logistics to discuss and kind of family business type items that we needed to cover. And so we would find ourselves on dates struggling with, well, this kid really is struggling with something at school or a friendship thing. And we need to talk through it. And we really need to, if we're going to be good parents, cover this kind of stuff. And this is the time where we have the space to do it. But we also really want to value enjoying each other. And it's not just a business relationship. We're married and we want to enjoy our date. Yeah. So that was kind of a challenge that presented itself.
So what we did was we kept that, standard like date night to have one a week. But then it really helped so much to pick another date time. And for us, it just happened to be on Monday afternoons, where we were also able to get a sitter to cover our children. And that was like a not fun date. And I say that because that was when we talked about the things that are maybe less fun to talk about, but necessary. But it really protected our relationship in a lot of ways. Sure. For example, we would go to a little sushi place. So we would go for about an hour and a half, and we would talk about things that were necessary, such as, what are we going to do this summer? Will we go on vacation? To what sport is each of our children going to play? Towards budget, towards are we going to renovate the house? Towards calendar. We would typically start the meeting by looking at the calendar with all the crazy colors and everything. And saying, okay, who's covering that ride? And talking through each day, talking through meals, because sometimes Todd will cook. So who's cooking these days? Who's cooking those days? And what that really did was it freed room in our home life together, because that way, when we were home, we could, for the most part, enjoy each other instead of always trying to problem solve or figure out things. And so it also gave a luxury of, like, if something came up in my mind or there was an issue that I realized that needed to be dealt with, if it was nothing that was urgent in the moment, then I would just keep a running list and Todd would do the same, and we would shelf it. And then we would say, okay, we will talk about that on Monday when we sit down together. And so we found that really, especially being newly married and full-time parents with 4 children, it really freed us the room to enjoy each other, and not just each other, but get to know each other's children and be very present in the family life without trying to constantly figure out logistics or problem solve.
And that's just so great. The word that keeps coming to my mind as you're talking about this is confidence. I mean, that little hour and a half every week gave the two of you confidence going into the week that things were handled, things were taken care of. You can relax because you know you've got it. And also confidence as you're making your running list for what you're going to talk about next time, confidence that things aren't going to fall through the cracks or be unresolved.
Yeah. To me, I think it worked so well for both of us to figure out this trick. And I still have a little list in my phone, a little reminder list called the Monday meeting. And it's changed over the years. Like we don't always go to a restaurant or whatever. Sometimes it's, we'll meet for lunch. Sometimes we're just, setting aside time in the house that we go to a different room and sit down. But I'm more of a task kind of oriented person. And, so I'm always looking to check boxes. And for me, I found that there were a lot of times where I would say, Shannon, could we do this and this? And I had this great idea. And her feedback would be, can we talk about that later? And so I found myself struggling because I was always had kind of a list of things I wanted to throw out there, but there was never a great time, or I was always looking for the right time. And it felt so good to have a place to know mentally I can set this aside, put it on the Monday list, meeting list, and then we'll cover it then. And she's ready to talk about it, and I'm excited to get it off my list.
Yeah.
You knew there was a space in your calendar to make sure to be able to work that through with Shannon.
Yeah. And I love that piece you just shared, that Shannon was ready. You were emotionally and mentally prepared to talk about all the things on Todd's list, and you had your list as well. And you're not blindsided in the moment. You know, when we're running around doing things and multitasking, it's really difficult because Mike's like that too. He'll want to talk about things, and I'm like, I'm overwhelmed. I don't want to talk about that right now. Yeah. So this meeting gave you that space to mentally prepare.
It really did help me so much too. And I can see where it did help Todd, because I went into the meeting already with the frame of mind that, we might have to work through some difficult things or have some hard conversations or look at something tedious like budget. Whereas if I'm just at home hanging out and he were to bring that up to me, the way that I'm wired, that would feel overwhelming, but felt like, okay, I'm in this, like we're here, we're meeting, this is like a work date. It was like a working date. And this is a neat coincidence that we're talking about this, because maybe about a year ago, I met a wonderful young woman who is in a blended family who told me about Mike and Kim Anderson, who were blended family coaches for she and her husband. And she was telling me about your podcast, and I listed that to talk to Todd about on our Monday meeting.
That's great. So we made the Monday meeting.
Because she was telling me about the two of you and just how much your wisdom and help has helped her and her husband. And I thought, wow, I wish that Todd and I had something like that 6 or 7 years ago. And but it's never too late. And so I brought that information to a Monday meeting, and here we are. So
that's cool.
Well,
I don't think you've ever shared that with us before. Thank you, Shannon.
What an honor.
Yeah. I just want to pause for a second as well. And one thing that I heard in there was this was in no way a replacement of what Kim and I talk about with date night or building your romantic relationship or whatnot. It was really, even in the midst of this busy schedule, you kind of defied a lot of the thought process that I think many of us have of, we can't just add another thing to the calendar. But what you recognized was, hey, our regular date night is actually so important to us that we're going to protect that, and we're going to protect the rest of our week by setting aside this 90 minutes to work out the decisions that need to be made and plan for the week. And then the rest of the time, we just get to work the plan, and we actually can relax on our regular date night to enjoy each other. I just want to make sure everybody that's listening in recognizes, like, these are two very different things, and they're both equally important.
Yeah, that protection piece is so important. We just talked to a couple last week, and we asked, what is your dating life like? And they said, well, we go on a date night every week, but it ends up in a big conflict and fight. And we're upset with each other. And it's because they're talking about business. Yep. During their date night, and it gets hijacked.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Wow, what a great example you guys have set.
We love it.
Yeah, we've just really tried to say, this is fun. Like, this is what we look forward to. And usually it's Thursday for us. Actually, we've been doing Wednesday more often because a lot of times there's good deals at restaurants on Wednesday.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
But we keep it kind of in the forefront that this is for fun. This is for us to enjoy each other, to get out, to have adult time, to have play time, and sometimes we'll have to catch ourselves as we start to talk about, this issue or this child and say, you know what, let's talk about that another time. That's probably not.
Yeah. That's Monday meeting stuff. Yeah. Right. I wonder if you could just imagine for a moment that you had never stumbled across that and never done that. What do you think would have been different for you over the years?
I don't think it would have totally hurt our marriage, but I don't think we would have made the progress that we've made. Because I think that a lot of the space to move forward and come up with ideas, like right now we're building a house, and we were both coming from a place of brokenness, just from having lost a spouse and our children having lost a parent and all the things that come with that, all the extra family dynamics. And so to be able to be married and live together and function, I think we would have been able to do that. But a lot of our other headspace would have been used just trying to figure out what was going on around us. And I think this afforded us the extra space to have vision together for where we want our family to go and what do we want as a couple. And so that's what I think. What do you think?
That's great. It's so true. The other thing, I think, we had obviously been married before. And one of the things that we both realized after we had lost a spouse was that I think we both felt like we had marriages where it was a little bit of a siloed approach or more of a divide and conquer approach. Just to give one example, I pretty much in my prior marriage handled everything to do with finances. And Shannon's late husband, it was a similar arrangement. And when we lost our spouses, I think we started to realize that there's something lost in that. And that I think the other thing was we wanted to be just more joined together, more of a partner relationship where we shared duties. And I think the Monday meeting really helped us be on the same page. And it kept me from going off on my own and kind of taking the divide and conquer approach. I could have fallen into that old pattern, but I think this Monday meeting has allowed us to stay more connected as partners as we approach kind of all the different duties of marriage and kind of raising our home, our kids in our home.
Yeah. And you're each bringing input. A lot of times when families blend, they kind of stay in their own biological camps. I'll do my thing with my kids. You do your thing with your kids. And it's almost like two families living under the same roof. We've seen that quite often.
Lots of times, yeah.
But when you're having your Monday meeting and you're talking about everything from parenting to budgeting, you are creating this partnership and this blend. We're doing this together. And you're each bringing your own insights and your own preferences and your own understanding of how you want to run your household and move forward as a family. And I think that's so awesome. Good job, you guys.
Yeah, that's really well done. What I hear in that is there's a recognition that you both have a commitment and a character that you say, if we hadn't stumbled across this idea, we would have made it. We would have been okay. We love each other. We're committed to each other. We have a strong, solid foundation. But what you might have missed is the extra energy that you were able to pour into your marriage and the extra partnership and unity that you got to experience just through problem solving together, through really containing that in a way that said, hey, we're going to run our household as partners and really enjoy each other.
Some friends of ours use the word usness.
Yeah. I don't know who that might be. Some crazy people calling it made up word called usness. Yeah.
And I also think you avoided some conflict. I mean, it's hard to run a household on the fly, and that can create stress and conflict. And what are we doing? Who's doing what in the moment? And
that's right.
I think that you may have experienced more conflict and tension in your home if you hadn't had those Monday meetings.
I think that's so true, Kim. When, if one of us goes off and makes a decision and it doesn't turn out so well, it really can create tension. But if we're both on board and we're making the decision as a team, then, we're both in it together.
That's a game changer. It really is.
Yeah, totally game changer. I know, Shannon, you said these were the not fun dates. I thought that was kind of a funny way to say it because I'm thinking about the season we've had not fun dates, and it was all about conflict, not about prepping for things. So.
But we could have avoided some of that had we been more intentional about talking about these things up front before the moment hits and we're in crisis and conflict.
Yeah.
And, I have to hand it to you guys because a lot of us have a different dynamic where our kids are moving back and forth. And so sometimes blended families or blended couples get a break in the chaos.
Right.
Early on we had, a whole week without my daughter in the home. And so it would have been really easy for us to schedule a Monday meeting on those weeks that, we had the place to ourselves. Where you guys have full-time children and you were still able to carve out time knowing that this was going to benefit you as a couple and your family. So I give you kudos, and I challenge whoever's listening out there. If you're thinking, oh, we don't have time for that, maybe you do.
Or maybe you don't not have time for that. Did I say that right? I don't know. Just the sheer magnitude of the things on your calendar, we can really imagine at that stage. So I'm sure that was a challenge in order to, really consistently hold on to Monday meetings. What other challenges might you have run into to really make this happen?
I think just pulling yourself away in general. Because it's easy to say, we have a sitter here for this time, but with a busy household in the afternoon, sometimes it's hard just to put on that thinking cap of I don't know if it's called a thinking cap, but whatever it is, to walk away and leave. It's like my son could fall down, skin his knee, and then it's like, okay, hug him, but trust the babysitter and know that I'm ultimately loving him more by going to this meeting with Todd and looking at our family. We're people of faith, so we would also spend time praying. We would start the meeting with prayer and pray for the week, pray for each other and the children. And it was ultimately beneficial to our children than me actually being there all the time. Sometimes you have to get away.
Shannon, I just love that perspective, this recognition that I'm actually loving my child more by allowing them to, walk through the skin knee with the babysitter and coming over here and focusing on these things that are going to be critical to the week ahead to make sure that we have some peace in our home.
And stability.
I wish that I had that kind of perspective early on in our marriage. I did not bring that kind of perspective.
It's easy to get distracted, and you really were intentional about protecting that time. That's what I'm hearing.
So good.
Yeah.
Todd, what would you add to that?
Well, I think we notice this even now, that it's just easy to allow the schedule to creep And, sometimes we'll say, I'm going to be 30 minutes late, can we push it back? And then the other person says, well, I really need to do this. Do we really need to meet this week? I don't really have a lot of stuff. So, we've certainly, skipped weeks, and that's kind of the ongoing challenge, is just continuing to say, you know what, this is a really important discipline. And even if there is only 2 things or 3 things that we need to talk about, they're important. And a lot of times it ends up being a more fruitful discussion, or things come up that we really do need to cover. So, just continuing to keep that discipline.
Mm-hmm. And then I would also like just to add to any listeners out there that might struggle with guilt feelings, just to remember that when you're in a blended family, you're different than first families, and to not compare yourself to other families that are first families, whether it's a blended family due to one of you being divorced or both, or loss like Todd and me. Yep. There were times I would struggle because I had friends that have been married forever and they don't go on dates with their husbands. And it would look like, well, what a luxury. You and Todd go on 2 dates a week. And they wouldn't say it condescendingly, but it would make me feel guilty. Like, is that selfish? Is that bad? But I would have to remind myself that we are not them, and blended families are in that position for a reason. There are things to heal from and a lot more to work through. And so I would say it's almost vital.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
there's a lot of stuff going on under the surface of blended families that needs to come up, and we need to deal with it.
Yeah, really well said, Shannon. So what I heard is, don't feel guilty about the skin knee getting covered by the babysitter, and don't feel guilty when you hear other people comparing. You focus on what's healthy for your marriage, for your family, and you stick with that and keep going. I love that.
Yeah, that's
so
real
good.
Commitment.
Absolutely. Shannon, you said the word wiring, earlier, just kind of talking about your core wiring and how we're all built. We're all built very uniquely. And I wonder, for those people out there who might be non-planners, are you guys, I can't remember, we talked about personality type when we were going through coaching. Are you both planners, or tell us a little bit about your wiring?
Yeah,
Todd's
the planner. Shannon enjoys. Shannon's more spontaneous and a lot more fun than me.
Well, I wasn't going to say it, Todd, but
So he is naturally, by nature, a planner.
Sure.
But I have learned to appreciate the skills of planning, because it allows me, the structure that we create by planning allows me the freedom I need to thrive.
Yeah.
How did you kind of face that challenge of, we got to have this weekly planning?
Not so fun meeting.
Well, it was, I think when we finally started doing it, it was at a point where I was feeling so overwhelmed just by all these different dynamics that I was finding out, like surprises, like, oh, I didn't know these people were coming over today, or, oh, wait, you're not going to be here for dinner, or this person needs a ride. And I learned that it's better overall just to go ahead and do it and have a sense of what's going on, because guess what? With 4 kids, there's still going to be the unpredictable, unexpected. And so if you can at least get your head around the things that you can foresee and predict and try to be strategic about, then that's a really good thing. I think the part that was the biggest growth for me was, like I said, when I met Todd, I had 1 child, and I could kind of wing it easily. And even in my first marriage, it was like, oh, what are we going to have for dinner? What do you want? I don't know. What do you want? Let's make something. But then when you have a household of 6 people, and then you're growing into, you have some teenagers on the horizon with big appetites and other needs, it's like you realize, I will be going to the grocery store every day unless I'm smart, unless I make a plan, and I can go once and figure out,
Yeah.
So it sounds like even as a non-planner, you were the one going, we got to put some structure into this somehow, some way.
Yeah, you see
And
the
then-
benefit.
Yeah. And then you
That's
worked
right.
together to figure that out.
Mhm.
That's awesome. So I just challenge you because I'm thinking about you, honey.
I
on this.
know.
If I
I'm
had
not
been
a planner.
If I'd been like, hey, we should have a weekly planning meeting, you'd be like, are you kidding me? That's terrible. Especially early on. Now you would say something
Yeah,
different.
I really resonate with what you just shared there, Shannon,
Yeah.
because I have learned the benefit of planning. And it does kind of save your butt later on, is what I've discovered. It's
For
like,
sure.
when we
Yeah.
don't plan, we get in these situations that are really stressful. And I don't
Mhm.
want more stress in my life. So
Right.
I've learned to just kind of suck it up, even though I'm not a
Right.
planner, and let's sit
Mhm.
down and talk about this
Mhm.
so that later on we don't run into this big issue.
Yeah. So if you're a non-planner and you're thinking, gosh, I don't know, that sounds awful.
Yeah.
I would challenge you to just think about it and give it a chance.
Try.
Now, if you're the planner in the relationship and you're thinking, man, this is great, I'm going to start this next week, and your
Yeah,
and your
I love
partner's
this
a
idea.
non-planner, and you come at them with like, here's the plan, and this is what we're going to do, and I just encourage you to maybe slow it down a little bit,
Mhm.
and maybe your first step is actually to say, hey, I just listened to this podcast
Mhm.
episode. Would you be willing to listen to it with me? And then maybe kind of ease your partner into that whole
Maybe
process.
ask, what do you think?
Yeah.
And invite them into the process rather than charge
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I'm kind of a planner and a take the hill kind of guy. And so sometimes
not good for me.
Kim gets a bit chewed up in the process. So be careful about how you bring that up.
Was that a challenge for you, Todd?
I was just saying, Mike has been reading my mail. For me, the challenge in our relationship in regards to that is always I'm thinking way ahead. So I'm wanting to have the conversation of, hey, I've been thinking about, this trip we could take this summer, or some event that's coming up, or this next stage in life. And what do you think about this?
Yep.
So, and that can really be overwhelming to Shannon, because she's thinking,
sure.
I just want to be right here. Can we not enjoy, Christmas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. So,
yeah.
Yep.
Todd's already thinking about next Christmas.
right,
Yeah.
right. So, for me, I just have needed to really rein it in to say, it's very important for us to be together on things.
Where he has kind of had to slow his roll, I've picked up some planning skills and kind of stepped out of my comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like you both have stepped out of
Right.
your comfort zone a little bit.
Weren't you the one who took the reins and planned your recent trip to
Yes.
Hawaii, Shannon?
Yes, that was really fun.
You have stepped it up, but you had to find a pace that was comfortable for both
right.
of you.
Mhm,
That's
mhm.
the key. Mhm.
And I heard Todd say a couple minutes ago, hey, there were times where we skipped or missed, or there was this and there was that. So it sounds like there was also an ability to be flexible.
Mhm.
This wasn't
Oh,
rigid, but it was intentional.
Mhm.
And there's a big difference between rigidness and intentionality.
Yeah.
And what I hear is that you were being intentional. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in a previous conversation, you had mentioned that there was even a season more recently where you weren't really doing Monday meetings for kind of an extended season. And then as we started talking about it, it kind of hit you guys, and you were like, hey, we should start that up again. So
Yeah.
more recently, you've started that Monday meeting discipline up again. And I wonder what maybe you've been discovering that you didn't notice in previous seasons of having your Monday meetings.
Yes, it's been good. It's funny that you brought that up. I think what happened was we did start to slow it down as our children got older, and then the pandemic happened and nobody went anywhere. There wasn't
Right.
too
Yeah.
much to plan for. But in recent times, picking up the Monday meeting has been neat, because it's now that our children are all teenagers. It's not so much about the logistics, because we're about to have our second driver. So a lot of that's getting covered, but we're just really able to look at things that are more oriented towards our parenting. And what values do we want to instill in our children? And what would be a good activity to do with our children? And, and then also with each other, maybe what would you like to do? Would plan a trip together. But we use that time as well for
discussing a lot of stuff with the children. I think too, this one's having challenges socially. This one, we might need to encourage a little bit in this direction, and academically, or what do we need to check on to make sure he's doing his homework, and those kinds of things that just aren't fun, but we've got to be together, and we've got to make sure we're covering those at some point.
Right. Great. So it's kind of that parental powwow. We're going to get together and really talk about some parenting strategies because you are in a different season of parenting.
Exactly.
Yes. So the discipline is being renewed, but the content is kind of morphing and changing as the kids go through different stages, and your marriage goes through different stages.
That's
right.
That's awesome. Well, Todd and Shannon, if you could leave our listeners with just one simple tip around this whole thing as we kind of close up this conversation, what might it be?
I would say that if you're seriously considering trying a meeting with your husband or wife, I would say start by picking a good destination or a good spot. For Todd and I, we picked this little sushi place near us, and at a time where it's not too crowded and we could get a cozy booth, and the sushi is fantastic. And so that also, for those of you that don't love planning, that gave me a little motivation and a dangled carrot that I might get a steak roll, and so I really think that does help. Now we're in the place where we can do our meeting here at home, but I think for couples starting out, it really helps to go somewhere else outside of the home.
Make the environment enjoyable.
Yeah. Even if you have to have your meeting at home, can't get a sitter or whatever, maybe you have food delivered, your favorite.
Yes.
Just make it something to look forward to.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, really good tip.
Todd, what might your tip be?
My tip would be I can't remember where this quote came, but somebody told me one time that in Asia, their word for marriage has to do with agriculture, and it basically implies that you have to grow a marriage instead of make a marriage. With a wedding, you grow a marriage, and to me, this is the kind of thing that is so important. And, when you think about growing plants, you have to weed them, you have to plant the seeds, you have to water them, you have to nurse them with sunlight. Yeah. And these are the types of things that I feel like are so important to do the legwork to make it grow.
Yeah. So it's really about tending your marriage along the way, just like you would tend a garden or a plant. Yeah.
Yeah. And it sometimes it does sort of, feel like work. And it is work, but it's worth it.
Wow. Well, what a great strategy, just a great concept. I'm so grateful the way that you challenged us to think about the way that we talk about dating and this unique approach to protecting date night, but also creating this unique kind of date night. What great wisdom. And we're so grateful that you were able to come on and share that with us and with our listeners. Thank you for being willing to do that.
Yeah. And I just want to share a fun fact about Todd and Shannon with our listeners before we go.
Uh-oh.
No, it's a fun fact, and it really reveals your commitment to growth, the two of you.
Yeah.
When you were on vacation in Hawaii, and we were expecting that, we're going to push your appointment out a week or two.
Oh, yeah.
You met with us on Zoom, on vacation, on the beach.
Yep.
And that was just amazing. And we got to wear our Hawaiian gear just to make you.
That's right.
But that's really incredible. And you guys are in it. You're committed. You're intentional. And we're really proud of you.
Yeah. Well done.
Thank you for saying that. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We've it's been our privilege to connect with you over these many months. So thank you for allowing us to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Todd, Shannon, thank you for joining us for this conversation. I'm sure it's going to bring value to everybody that gets to connect with it.
Yes.
And we're just so grateful.
Our pleasure.
It is our pleasure.
Glad to do it.
Okay, thanks. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Wow, what a great conversation with Todd and Shannon. And really, what a privilege it's been to be able to serve them over the last several months. Yeah, they've been really fun to work with. Todd and Shannon, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
You know, I love what Todd had to say at the very end there about tending our marriage, kind of that in relationship to kind of like agriculture, where we have to tend and we have to care for
and it takes
nurture.
some work and some
Absolutely.
effort.
So as we learn from Todd and Shannon to kind of compartmentalize the business of doing family life together, next week we want to talk about some of that tending that he was talking about to really build our marriage and watch it grow.
Right. How do we make our marriage a priority and invest in our relationship?
For
so
sure.
important.
So you aren't going to want to miss next week. Make sure you come back here and join us. But that's going to make this episode a wrap.
Until next time.